See. And hello, welcome to Meditation Live. Hello to those of you just joining us on YouTube Live. My name's Stefan Ravalli. I'm a host here at Meditation Live. I'm also the host of the Serve Conscious podcast. And I'm joined today by Andy Lee, and we're going to talk about mindful leadership. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Stefan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Really excited about today and drawing from your deep expertise in this field. First, before we begin, I will remind everyone that this is an interactive panel, so I encourage you to unlock the power of this interactivity by using the Q&A box in the chat box to post any questions you might have, and you can put up your hand. We'll enable your mic, and you can talk directly to us. And note that these features are only available on the meditation.live app, which you'll need to get on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. They won't work on YouTube Live, even though we're really happy to see you here. Okay, so if Andy, you want to start with a practice to settle us into today's topic, I can pass things over to you now.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great. So welcome, everybody. It's great to be with you today. I'd like to invite you to do a short practice with me. And a great way to start out is to just adjust our posture a little bit. Put both of your feet flat on the floor. Straighten up your back so your chest is open and your abdomen's open for easy breathing. Taking your hands, these things, and just letting them drop in the lap. And allowing the eyes to gently close or simply looking downwards with a soft gaze. And just taking a moment to notice what it feels like to pause in the middle of a busy day. Just noticing what's present for you right now, what thoughts are kicking around, what emotions are present, and just taking it all in, the internal landscape for a minute, without judging, just with a sense of curiosity. And then noticing the fact that you're breathing. Bring your attention to the sensations of the breath, how it moves in and out of the body. Just letting the breath flow naturally without needing to control it. Breathing in, being aware that you're breathing in. Breathing out, being aware that you're breathing out. And following 3 more cycles of the breath. In and out of the body, seeing if we can just savor each one of these breaths. And when you're ready, allowing your eyes to open again. And what I like to do after a practice is just give a really ugly, inelegant stretch and twist. Feel free to join me in that. There we go. Okay. Thank you.
All right, nothing like an ugly stretch to to start the discussion. Yeah, a stretch at your desk can't be underestimated in its value, actually. Thank you for that. Great. So thank you for that practice, Andy. And hello to those of you just joining us. Definitely let us know if anything came up in that practice you'd like more clarity about. Leave your questions in the Q&A box. So mindful leadership. I'd like to start today's discussion, I guess, Andy, with your definition of leadership. What makes someone a leader?
That's a really good question. And actually, it's really not asked that often because there's a lot of different ways to think about leadership. One way you can think about leadership is that it's a job. Like I got promoted from team member to team leader, or I'm running a department. That makes me the leader. Another thing is if we kind of take it on ourselves, like from a team that's working on a project, has to pick a leader, or just like when you're out trying to figure out what restaurant to go to and somebody takes the lead. So it can be anything from really formal to something that happens almost just in the moment. And so it really depends on how you talk about leadership. I do think that, in our culture, everybody wants to be a leader. Like we always look up to our leaders, and leadership is just the thing to be. And I think just being a good team member is really underestimated. We don't really all have to be leaders. And having said that, we all will always have opportunities to be leaders. So in a way, the leader is really just a team member, has a special responsibility. That's kind of the way I see it.
And I guess this is really valuable because a lot of us, might feel dissatisfied with a position that's like quote unquote lower on the pyramid, and we're all striving to be on the tip of it to feel fully actualized, right? And that's why so many people are becoming solopreneurs, because they can feel like the CEO of their one person business, and
Yeah,
they're like, well, now I'm a leader.
right.
But that can result in too many people wanting to be in charge and no one to actually like carry out a vision together.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the ways to think about it is a lot of times when we think about a company, you think about an org chart and it's a pyramid like this, right? But it's just as easy to think about it as a pyramid like this. If you're a leader, you're really on the bottom, and your job is really to bring out the best from everybody in your team, because they're the people that are going that do all the work for you. And that's really your job. It's not about who I am, or am I a good leader? Am I acting like a good leader? The question is really, is my team performing? Are we reaching the results? Are we reaching the goals that we need to? If they are, then you're a good leader. It's not necessarily about saying or doing anything in particular. It's really about looking at how you can support your team.
All right. And how does mindfulness make one this better leader able to serve their team? What makes someone a mindful leader?
Well, Stefan, one of the things is just what I said, because a lot of times when we feel pressure, we get into this mode where we're evaluating ourselves all the time. Like, how am I doing? Am I acting like a leader? Do I have leadership presence, which everybody seems to think says is so important? And mindfulness allows us to kind of turn the volume down on our ego a little bit and just take in other people's perspectives and take in the world around us a little bit and open our lenses, open kind of the aperture of our lenses a little bit, approach things with a little bit more humility. And I think that's a really important quality in a leader, because if you want to know how to lead your team, they're going to tell you, but you have to listen. And mindfulness allows us to pay more attention to what we're doing and how we're doing it, and paying more attention to how we can support other people versus, do they think I'm a leader? What's my leadership quotient for today? So mindfulness helps us to be more present, to be more connected, and to know what we need to do to support the effectiveness of our teams.
All right. And everyone attending, I've got a question for you. What qualities do you admire in a leader? What makes you want to follow someone? Because I guess, as you were saying, Andy, it's not enough just to have the position. You have to have qualities that inspire influence. And mindfulness is key for that, because you can't just like, I guess, have this like big, powerful, imposing dominating status, right? You need to actually be someone that people feel cares about what they care about, cares about the team itself. And
That
so,
that I think you always need. But the part about having a big presence, and that really depends, honestly. I mean, think about when we talk about leadership, we just assume that. Think about a team of software developers, and think about a team of salespeople, and think about a team of nurses, okay, or healthcare providers. Each one of those teams will have different values, will have different goals, just as a team. And they'll require different types of strengths. So if you're leading a wrestling team, running around like that, throwing your weight around and being tough, that could be exactly what they need. But to be a good leader, you really have to put all those assumptions aside and say, okay, what does this team need from me now?
all
It's
right.
a little more
Love
powerful.
that.
Yeah.
So I've got some comments in the Q&A box here. First, someone says, it's all anonymous actually, really like the reverse pyramid perspective. Another comment says, a leader should keep everyone progressing in their future.
Yep.
And then another one says, leadership equals listening, truly caring, embodying the qualities of compassion, and supporting your team in and even out of the workplace when appropriate. Who
Yeah.
left that comment? Was that you?
I know.
Sounds
I
pretty
was going to
good.
say that person needs to be promoted immediately if they're not already a leader. So thanks for that. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with those comments. You have to be tuned into your team. That's really your job. I remember once when I was first out of grad school, um, uh, an executive coach told me that I was responsible for the mood of my team. And I'd never heard anything like that before. I thought it was about goals and priorities. And people don't usually talk about mood, but that has really stayed with me because that's really what a leader's job is, to create that container within which the team can be effective. And also other things like setting strategy and fighting for resources and building relationships, all that too. But it has to start with the team.
Yeah, that's a really interesting play against this idea of the purely practical model of running a company. It's like, these guys have to hit their goals and keep the cogs turning. And, like if you're not feeling up for it, tough it out, push through, like that seems to be a much more holistic model of leadership where it's about how people are feeling, a leader is actually somehow, I guess, committed to making people feel good as well.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, we can't always, how are you feeling today? Are you okay? You know, that's not going to work every day of the, we're going to have times when everybody has to pitch in and just, suck it up. That will happen, but you can do that in different ways. It doesn't have to be inhumane, and it doesn't have to be disconnected. So I think, again, I don't think there's anything that's off bounds. You just have to know what you're doing, when you're doing it, and why you're doing it to make it really effective.
Mm-hmm. So I've got a comment here from Kelsey. It's good to see you again, Kelsey. I appreciate so much that my leaders inspire us to get better every single day. It's always been quote unquote one team, which I haven't experienced in other companies. Leaders that care about the well being of their team is enough to keep people going each day.
That's so true. And it's about the team, but it is also about those individuals. I mean, just speaking from my own experience, I've led a lot of teams over my career. I know that if someone is working for me and I know what they want, where they want to go in their career and what they want to accomplish, and I can help them with that, they are going to be so energized to help the team in other ways. So it's not just about talking about the team goals, it's about connecting with individuals and seeing what they need and how you can support them. Of course, it's all within reason, and you still have to get the work done, but that's often forgotten by people. People think that if I give my team the mission of the company, that's all they need to be inspired. But there's always, people have their own personal goals, their own professional goals that they're always going to be pursuing. And for a leader, if you can tap into that there's a lot of energy there that can help.
All right, I'm loving this. And I'm curious about your experience at Aetna Health, which top to bottom was a mindful company, which I imagined incorporated a lot of these values in their organizational structure. So, how have you seen these practices be put to work and create change where not only everyone's happier, but in fact, the company is more effective?
Well, Aetna had a lot of mindfulness programs, and there were a lot of people that took these things very seriously. As with any company, there's some areas that embrace things more than others. Um, and it's mindfulness is not something that you just kind of wave your wand and say, okay, this is a mindful company. It's a constant thing that we have to keep working on, as with anything else in a company. But I did see leaders change their approach. I did see leaders who became more open and more connected. And actually, probably the biggest example of that was our CEO, Mark Bertolini. who's the reason that mindfulness came to Aetna. He did a lot of good things for employees. And also, if you went to a town hall, like an all hands meeting with him, he was very informal. He was very direct. He took questions from everybody, and he really cared about them and answered them and listened to them. You never felt like you were getting, the corporate line. And I think that's what I see a lot in leaders who have embraced mindfulness, is that sense of authenticity, and the sense of trust that I'm going to be straight, and it's going to be okay. I can treat people like, like they're grown-ups.
And I've got a question here in the Q&A box from Anonymous. How can you be a mindful leader, even in the stressful times, without coming off as harsh or uncaring?
Well, I think that mindfulness does help us to be able to come off as harsh and uncaring. But I think what you mean, what this person meant to say perhaps is, the environment is so harsh and uncaring. How can mindful leadership help us to overcome that? And I mean, you almost have to dial it back again another step, which is the first thing you need to really get out of mindfulness practices for yourself. I mean, if you're a leader and you're listening to this, the question is, how do I become a mindful leader? That's a good question. But the first question is, how can this practice work for me? You can't skip over yourself and try to give it to somebody else. The best way to get started in this practice, even as a leader, is to practice mindfulness for yourself, and then see if other people notice or see what you do differently naturally. But don't forget about yourself. It's got to start here. Here's my hands. It's got to start here. And then after that, you can take it to your team. Because one of the first things you need to do, that people need to do, is to manage their own stress, which I think came out of this question. If you're very stressed out, a lot of these things are going to be very hard to do. So the first thing you need to do is kind of find a sense of emotional balance in yourself. And that's the thing that will enable you to connect more with other people. When we're really stressed out, we get tunnel vision. Our world just kind of collapses on top of this problem or this stress that we're feeling. And mindfulness helps us to release that stress a little bit, to open up our vision, and to make it easier to connect, and honestly also to think more openly. So I hope that helped.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So curious now about like the qualities of leadership, because I think, we've talked a lot about, leadership qualities and mindful qualities, and, it not necessarily about ticking all these boxes of strength.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we know, like, if we are a leader besides just having this role? And how do we know that we're going to be an effective leader? Is it about being a certain kind of person, or is it about having a certain amount of, I guess you can say, confidence or self-awareness or
Right,
something like
right.
that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no, as I said before, there's no really one right way to be a leader, but there may be a one right way for you to be a leader. And it may be different from anyone else's one right way. So I think it's great to have people that you look up to. It's great to have mentors and role models, and those can really be effective. But as soon as we try to be like somebody else or embody somebody else, things get complicated. And better off, what I found is really helpful, and I'm sure many of the people on the call have had this experience too. You notice things from other leaders that you say, oh, that seemed to work pretty well. Let me try that. Let me try this that I learned from this person. But in the end, you have to have the confidence to find your own authentic voice. You have to be able to, and this is where mindfulness helps. It helps us to relax a little bit and to kind of express ourselves, instead of trying to be like somebody else, trying to be like the leader we saw on TV or that we see in the executive suite. So, yeah.
So there's a certain amount of authenticity that gives you that ability to lead people and have them be confident in you as a leader.
Yeah, I think authenticity is a really important word, actually. There's a woman named Brene Brown who's written some great books about authenticity, and vulnerability is the word that she uses, actually. But it's being comfortable to express kind of your own perspective and your own style, not saying that you can do whatever you want, but finding your own voice and being comfortable with it and feeling like you don't need to change it um, or kind of fake it at work. And this also obviously leads into the diversity and inclusion aspect. And we want to create this possibility for all our team members too. We want them to be authentic and to be open and honest with their thoughts and their opinions, because that's how we learn and that's how we grow as a team and as individuals.
All right. Well, we're at the 20-minute mark, but there's some more questions coming in. If you don't mind, I'll push those forward, and we'll keep the discussion going for a few more minutes. Anyone that's got to go can definitely go. We've covered a lot of awesome ground today. But I've got a question here, Q&A box from Anonymous. Is there a different leadership mindfulness for a first-time leader versus someone that has led teams for some time?
A different leadership mindfulness practice. That's an interesting question. I can't say that I'm really sure necessarily, but I think the approach doesn't really change that much. If you have experience, it'll give you a leg up. But one thing, experience is a two-edged sword, because what happens is, and for people who are interested in becoming leaders and going down this path, our strengths, once we're good at something, it's easy to say, okay, I got this. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I'll just keep doing it the way I did it last time and everything will be fine. And of course, that's not true. Even if we led one team really effectively, if we take on a new team, we have to take a step back and say, okay, what's the same and what's different? So in a way, I'm hoping that experienced leaders always act like first-time leaders. I mean, there's a concept in mindfulness called beginner's mind that says that in an expert's mind, there are a few possibilities, and in a beginner's mind, there are many. So we always have to keep that beginner's mind, regardless how much experience we might have.
Right. Yeah. That openness and adaptiveness.
Yeah.
That's important, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So I got a question here from Samira about teaching others, like if you're giving instruction as a leader, but people are resistant to it and they're sensitive about it. How do you teach people when, they have obstacles within them to being led?
Is it about being led in general or about learning about a mindfulness approach? Can you tell from the question or no?
No, that's all I got. I guess we'll just have to,
Okay.
use interpretation unless you want to elaborate, Samira. But it just seems to be about the act of teaching and I guess doing so mindfully when someone's resisting being taught and instructed and led.
Right. Well, I think that let's see. The best way to start the best way to start in these things is really with yourself. If you can role model something, if you can embody it and show the benefits of it in how you act, then that will set the show the way to people. So instead of trying to convince people that that this is the right way to go and this is the way we need to do it, you can just kind of act it out. You say, okay, well, have you thought about the other side of this? Or, can we take a step back? Or, embodying it yourself is really a great place to start.
Yeah, the leading by example, I suppose, right? Just like you were saying with mindfulness, it's like you don't have to tell everyone, all right, we're a mindful organization now, and we have to do all these mindfulness practices. It's more like, showing how much it's worked for you. And then people will more naturally follow something like that, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
So I just want to talk once more about leadership qualities and discuss presence, since next week we're going to be talking fully about presence as a quality. And you've mentioned presence in leadership as a key quality. So what is presence and what's a present leader look like? I know we've already probably discussed it a bit.
Well, I'm just going to say a little bit because I really want people to tune in and to get the full benefit of the session next week. But presence is really table stakes, honestly. If you want to be a leader, the first thing you need to do is you have to have your head. I don't want to use too many, metaphors here, but you have to kind of have your head in the game. And what I mean by that is you have to be tuned in, you have to be paying attention with an open and curious mind, and perhaps even a compassionate mind. If you want to be a leader, that's table stakes. Without that, you're not going to get very far. You can have great speeches, you can have great skills in terms of delegation or strategy, but if you're not really connected and open to being connected with your team, that's really where it needs to start. So that's why we start with presence, and it's about listening. It's about and it's about more than that. So I really encourage people to check that out, and then we're going to be talking about it more, I think, in the next session, right after people have a chance to listen to that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited about that topic and getting into that in our next session.
Yeah.
So thanks for that today, though, Andy, and thanks for such a great introduction to mindful leadership. I look forward to this longer series. Everyone, please stick with us. We're going to get deeper and deeper into the power of mindful leadership over the course of many weeks. So I'll pass things over to you now, Andy. Any other closing remarks you might have, or if there's a practice you'd like to leave us with and send us out into the world?
I just want to thank everybody for showing up. This is such an important topic. Leadership is a tough job, whether you want to become a leader or you are a leader. And it's really important. We need mindful leaders all over the world right away, as many as we can find. So with that, why not allowing our eyes to close for a minute? If you've got another 90 seconds with us. And just taking a deep conscious breath in and letting it out slowly. Taking another breath in. And this time extending the exhale. Seeing how long you can exhale for. Breathing in again. And again, a long and calm exhale. And noticing how you feel right now. That's all I got.
Thanks so much, Andy. Did you want to tell people a bit about your course on the Meditation Live app?
Yeah, the course was posted today, and it's a 5-session course, and the first topic is presence, and there's 4 others which you can find on the app. I'm really looking forward to sharing all this content with you. I think we laid a good foundation for today, and I'm going to be joining you for a number of additional live sessions where we can dig into this. So if you go into these sessions, listen to the sessions, and then bring your questions back, and we'll, as Stefan said, we'll really dig in as we go forward.
Excellent. Well, so looking forward to that. Thank you again, Andy. You have yourself a great day. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining. Take care.